The sun had barely risen when Sterling Maddox dismounted for the last time. His boots sank into the red dust of the canyon, the kind that clung to skin and memory alike. Behind him lay 3 days of desert blistering heat, rattlesnakes, and silence thick enough to make a man talk to himself. Ahead, through the shimmering air, lay a shape, a body. She was young, no older than 20, her dark hair tangled with sand and blood. The marks on her arm told him what she was. Apache. Sterling froze. He'd heard stories about what happened to men who touched an Apache woman uninvited. But stories didn't matter when someone was dying in front of you. He knelt beside her, feeling for breath. It came, shallow but steady. A long gash ran across her side, fresh, maybe from a fall, maybe from a fight. He looked at his horse. The only thing standing between him and certain death in this desert. Then at her. "Damn it," he whispered. "Don't make me choose." But he already had. With rough hands, he tied his canteen to the saddle horn and lifted her up. The horse snorted, uneasy under the weight. "Easy, girl," he murmured. "You're saving a life today." He gave the horse a slap and watched as it carried the woman slowly toward the distant line of mesas, the Apache lands. Then he was alone. No horse, no water, just the whispering wind and the faint echo of hooves fading into the horizon. For the rest of that day, Sterling walked. By nightfall, his lips were split, his throat burned, and the stars above seemed to mock him with their cold indifference. But beneath the exhaustion, something else stirred, a strange peace. He'd done the right thing, or so he thought. When the first sound reached him, the deep, rhythmic thud of hooves, he turned, expecting salvation. Instead, the desert edge filled with riders, 70 of them. Apache warriors, painted for war, faces unreadable under the moonlight. They surrounded him in silence. No one spoke. Not a threat, not a greeting. Just eyes, 70 pairs, all fixed on him. Then one of them dismounted, stepped forward, and held out a single white feather. Sterling stared. He didn't know it yet, but that feather wasn't a warning. It was an invitation to a trial no white man had ever survived. For what felt like an eternity, no one moved. The desert wind whispered through the canyon, carrying only the low creak of saddle, leather, and the dry rattle of feathers tied to spears. Sterling's pulse roared in his ears. 70 riders stared at him, each one carved in silence, men of a world he barely understood. The one who'd stepped forward, tall, broad, his eyes dark as obsidian, still held out the white feather. Its tip fluttered gently in the wind, glowing faintly under the silver moonlight. Sterling swallowed hard. "I don't want trouble," he said slowly, raising his hands. "The woman, she was hurt. I gave her my horse. That's all." No response. Only the steady breathing of the horses and the distant cry of a coyote. Then the warrior spoke, his voice low, rhythmic and ancient, words flowing like water over stone. Sterling couldn't understand a single one. Another man dismounted, older this time, his hair streaked with gray and bound in braids that reached his chest. His gaze was deep, but not hostile. He took the feather from the younger warrior and stepped closer. When he spoke, it was in broken English, the kind learned through decades, not lessons. "You give, ... horse." Sterling nodded carefully. "Yes, she was dying. I couldn't leave her." The elder's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. He studied Sterling as though peering into his soul. Finally, he turned and said something in Apache. The circle of riders shifted, not in aggression, but in purpose. 2 of them rode off into the darkness, their silhouettes swallowed by the dunes. The elder remained. He pointed at Sterling's chest with the feather. "You give life," he said. "Now, you stand in circle. You wait." Sterling hesitated. Wait for what? The elder didn't answer. He turned and walked back to his horse, mounting with the grace of a man half his age. The warriors tightened the circle, their torches flickering, throwing long shadows across the sand. For hours, they said nothing. The firelight danced across their painted faces white, and red symbols that looked half like war marks, half like prayers. Sterling's throat burned. His legs trembled, yet something inside him kept him upright. Pride, maybe, or the quiet conviction that he had done the right thing. As the night deepened, one of the younger warriors approached. He carried a clay bowl filled with smoke that curled like ghosts. Without a word, he set it before Sterling's feet. The scent of sage and cedar filled the air. The old man spoke again, his voice a whisper carried by the wind. "Spirit test you now, white man. Horse is life. You give life. But spirit must see truth." Sterling didn't understand the ritual, but he understood the gravity in those eyes. This wasn't a threat, it was a judgment. The warriors began to hum a low, resonant sound that vibrated through the ground and into Sterling's chest. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. He closed his eyes. The torches flickered in the wind, their flames twisting like restless spirits. Each one was planted in the sand with precision, creating a narrow path that cut through the darkness. Sterling walked carefully, his boots crunching against the grit. Behind him, the warriors remained motionless, 70 statues of judgment. The night was cold now, colder than any desert had the right to be. The silence pressed against his ears until he could hear only the beating of his heart and the faint hiss of the fire. After several minutes, the path widened into a hollow carved by wind and time. There, at its center, stood a figure, small, fragile, but familiar. It was her. She was wrapped in a blanket of woven leather and feathers, her wound bandaged with herbs that gave off a bitter scent. She stood beside a small fire, her dark eyes reflecting both fear and strength. Sterling stopped. "You're alive," he breathed. Ayanna didn't answer. She simply watched him, her expression unreadable. Two older women appeared from the shadows, their faces painted white. One of them held a wooden bowl filled with water. Another carried a carved staff topped with an eagle's feather. One of the women spoke softly in Apache. Ayanna translated, her voice trembling slightly. "They say the spirit of the horse is strong. When you gave your horse to me, you gave part of your life. The tribe must see if your spirit still stands." Sterling frowned. "I didn't do it for some ritual. I just couldn't let you die." Ayanna's gaze flickered, almost softening. "Spirit doesn't care why. It only sees truth." The older woman lifted the bowl toward Sterling. Steam rose from it, carrying the scent of earth and cedar. Ayanna continued, "You drink. If your heart is clean, the dessert will keep you. If not," she didn't finish. Sterling stared at the bowl. The water shimmered in the firelight, but something in it looked wrong, too thick, too dark. He looked at Ayanna. "What happens if I don't drink?" She hesitated. "Then the tribe believes the spirit has already taken you." He let out a dry laugh. "So either I die thirsty or poisoned." Her eyes narrowed. "No, either you prove you are a man of truth, or you prove you are not." For a long moment, no one moved. The desert waited, patient and ancient. Sterling looked up at the stars, 1,000 cold eyes staring back, and took the bowl. The liquid burned like fire down his throat. He coughed, dropping the bowl into the sand. The women began to chant, low and rhythmic, their voices weaving through the night. The world tilted. The fire blurred into ribbons of color, and the ground beneath him began to hum. He stumbled, clutching his head. Images flashed, the horse galloping into the horizon, Ayana's blood on his hands, a white feather drifting through a storm. Then, silence. When he opened his eyes, the fire was gone. The desert was gone. When dawn came, the desert was no longer silent. The sound of drums rolled softly through the valley, deep and steady like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Sterling stirred from the ground where he'd collapsed, his body stiff, his mouth filled with the taste of sand and smoke. The night's visions clung to him, the glowing horse, the whisper that had spoken inside his mind. For a moment, he wondered if he had truly seen it or if he was simply losing himself to exhaustion and fear. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer alone. The Apache warriors stood in a wide half-circle around him. Their faces were calm, unreadable. At the center was the elder, the same man who had given him the feather. He sat on horseback, silent as stone, waiting. Ayana approached from behind the line. Her wound was bound cleanly now, her steps slow but steady. In the rising light, she looked stronger, like someone reborn from the ashes of the desert. She met Sterling's eyes and gave a small nod. The elder spoke in Apache, his voice firm but not cruel. Ayana translated, her words soft yet carrying weight. You stood before the spirit and lived. Now the people must see your truth. 3 trials will show your path. Sterling's throat tightened. Trials? I didn't ask for any of this. Ayana's gaze didn't waver. The spirit asked. You answered when you gave your horse. 2 young warriors stepped forward, each carrying a spear. They drew a circle in the sand around Sterling's feet. Inside the circle, they placed a flat stone, a piece of bone, and a burning coal. Ayana pointed. The first trial is of endurance, body and will. You will carry the fire to the mountain, the bone to the river, and the stone to the spirit tree before the sun sets. Sterling looked toward the horizon. The mountain was miles away. The river, a thin silver line barely visible. The tree, he couldn't even see it. That's impossible, he said. Ayana's face remained calm. Then the spirit will know. The elder raised his hand, and the circle broke. The warriors stepped back, leaving Sterling alone with the 3 objects, fire, bone, stone. He stared at them for a long moment, then at the people watching him. He could feel the weight of their silence pressing down like judgment. Slowly, he picked up the burning coal with a small branch, wrapped the bone in cloth, and placed the stone in his pocket. The desert stretched ahead, endless, merciless. But he began to walk. Each step sank deep into the sand, his boots heavy, sweat already gathering under his collar. Behind him, the tribe watched without a sound. Above, the sun climbed higher, bright and merciless. He didn't know what waited for him beyond the dunes, or what these trials were meant to prove. But one thought followed him with every breath. He had given life once. Now, he had to prove he deserved to keep his own. The sun had turned savage by midday. Heat shimmered off the sand in waves, bending the horizon into liquid gold. Sterling's breath came harsh and shallow. The coal he carried smoked faintly in its small clay dish. Each gust of wind threatened to kill the flame. But somehow, it still lived, just as he did. He had no shade, no water, only the burning weight of the day pressing on his shoulders. His shirt clung to his back, soaked through. The bone wrapped in cloth felt heavier than it should have, and the stone in his pocket thudded with every step. a reminder that every part of this was meant to hurt. He muttered to himself, voice cracked and hoarse. 3 damn things. 3 damn places. What kind of gods test a man this way? The desert didn't answer. Hours passed. His legs shook. His vision blurred. Once, he stumbled and nearly fell face first into the sand, catching himself just before the coal slipped from the dish. The small flame flickered violently, almost dying, then steadied again. He stared at it, sweat dripping from his chin. "You're as stubborn as I am," he whispered. When he finally reached the foot of the mountain, the sun was already sliding west, painting the dunes in bronze. The climb looked impossible, steep, cliffs of red stone rising like the edge of the world. But he didn't stop. Each handhold tore at his palms, the rock cutting through skin and sweat. The coal smoke curled around his face as he climbed, blinding him, stinging his eyes. Halfway up, he slipped, scraping his arm raw against the rock. The dish almost fell, but he caught it, burning his fingers in the process. The pain was sharp, grounding, real. By the time he reached the plateau, the world was tinted orange and crimson. The wind screamed across the ridge. He knelt, his hands trembling, and set the burning coal atop a flat rock. The flame bent sideways, but didn't die. He looked up and froze. Across the mountain ridge stood 3 Apache warriors, silent, watching him from a distance. They hadn't followed. They had waited. One of them lifted his hand slowly, pointing toward the horizon. Sterling turned. Far below, the silver ribbon of a river cut through the canyon, the next destination. He exhaled, shakily. "You're watching to see if I quit, aren't you?" The wind answered for them, carrying dust through the dying light. He descended carefully, each step a battle between gravity and will. When he reached the base, his legs nearly gave out. The coal had gone cold, its purpose finished. 1 trial done. 2 remained. He knelt in the sand, staring toward the distant glimmer of water. The bone lay against his chest now, the second burden. His hands ached, his throat was raw, and every instinct screamed to turn back. But he remembered Ayana's words. The spirit doesn't care why. It only sees truth. He pushed himself up, 1 knee at a time, and started walking again. The sun was almost gone, but the path was still clear-cut in light and shadow. By the time Sterling reached the river, the sun had melted into a red horizon. The air smelled of wet earth, strange and unfamiliar after days of dust. He dropped to his knees at the edge of the water, scooping a handful to his lips. The cool taste hit him like salvation, then turned bitter with the memory of Ayana's words. The spirit doesn't care why. It only sees truth. He stared at the bone wrapped in cloth. It was carved from the leg of a horse, his horse. The realization hit him like a blow. The tribe must have found the animal, sacrificed it as part of the ritual. For a long moment, he could only stare at it, the weight of guilt crushing his chest. The sound of hooves drew his attention. 3 Apache riders appeared on the opposite bank, silhouettes against the dying sun. They said nothing, only watched. Then one raised his hand and threw something into the river, a small wooden talisman shaped like an arrowhead. It floated toward Sterling, spinning slowly. He waded into the water and caught it. It was carved with the same symbol he'd seen painted on their faces. A circle split by a single line. Balance, life and death. Ayana's voice echoed in his memory. To give life is sacred, but to release life willingly, that is truth. He understood then. The second trial wasn't about carrying something. It was about letting something go. Sterling unwrapped the bone. It gleamed pale and smooth under the twilight. His reflection wavered in the water beside it. Tired eyes, cracked lips, a man caught between worlds. He knelt and whispered, "I'm sorry, old friend." Then, with trembling hands, he set the bone into the current. The water caught it gently, pulling it downstream until it vanished into the darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. The river murmured softly, reflecting the last gold of the dying day. Then the wind changed, cold and sharp, carrying with it the faint sound of hooves. He looked up, heart pounding. Across the water stood Ayanna, no horse, no escort, just her, barefoot on the stones. Her expression unreadable. "You let him go," she said. Her English was clearer now, almost fluent. Sterling nodded. He deserved peace. Ayanna stepped closer, her reflection merging with his in the water. Peace is never given. It must be earned. He frowned. Then what was this for? She knelt across from him, the river between them like a line dividing two souls. "You gave the horse. You gave his bone. But the spirit still waits. The river only takes what you offer freely." He didn't understand until she drew a knife from her belt and sliced her palm. Blood trickled into the river, mixing with the current. Her face stayed calm, eyes fixed on him. "Your turn," she whispered. Sterling stared at the knife, then at the water, feeling the current pull harder now, as if urging him to decide. The river wasn't asking for death, it was asking for truth. He reached for the blade. The knife was heavier than it looked. Sterling turned it slowly in his hands, the firelight catching on the blade's edge. Across the water, Ayanna stood motionless, her palm bleeding freely into the river. The red current twisted through the reflection of the moon, turning silver into crimson. "You want me to bleed for your spirits?" he asked hoarsely. Ayanna's gaze didn't waver. "Not for them. For you." Her voice carried easily across the current, calm. Certain, like the river itself. The wind blew cold, sweeping sand into the water. The Apache riders on the ridge above watched in silence, their faces hidden in shadow. Sterling looked down at the blade again. He wasn't afraid of pain. Pain was simple. It had rules. But this was different. He had spent his life believing in his own strength. In survival, in the law of the frontier, you take what you need. You fight to stay alive. Yet here, standing before a river that seemed to breathe, he felt small, smaller than he'd ever been. He pressed the edge lightly against his palm. A thin line of red appeared, then another. The sting came after, sharp but clean. The blood dripped into the water, merging with iron. The current caught it instantly, pulling the color downstream until it vanished. The air shifted. The world around him seemed to hold its breath. The surface of the river shimmered, and for a heartbeat, Sterling saw something beneath. The faint outline of a horse, running through the depths, mane flowing like ribbons of light. His heart pounded. He fell to his knees, gripping the edge of the water as visions flooded his mind. His horse galloping across endless plains, the faces of those he'd wronged, his own reflection fading into the current. Then the river spoke, not with words, but with sound, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through his bones. The water rose slightly, enough to touch his wounded hand. It was cold and alive. Ayanna stepped closer, kneeling opposite him. "Now you see," she whispered. "The river remembers all who give. It takes, but it also returns." Sterling looked at her, breath ragged. "Returns what?" She touched the water gently, and a small wooden carving floated toward him, a horse, no bigger than his palm. It was crude, but recognizable. carved from the same wood as the talisman the warriors had thrown earlier. His spirit, she said softly, and yours joined. Sterling held the carving tightly, unsure whether to believe or not. But something inside him shifted, a quiet surrender. The desert wind softened. The tension in his chest eased. For the first time since the ordeal began, he didn't feel like an outsider. Ayanna rose and extended her uninjured hand. The river has spoken. The second trial is done. The night after the river was unnaturally still. No drums, no voices, only the wind whispering through dry reeds. Sterling sat by the dying campfire, staring into the embers as if they could tell him what came next. The wooden horse carving lay in his palm, its surface warm from his touch. Ayanna sat nearby, silent, her face half hidden in shadow. Beyond her, the Apache warriors kept their distance, forming a quiet circle around the fire. Their eyes reflected the glow, watchful, patient. They weren't guarding him anymore. They were waiting. Finally, Ayanna spoke. "The river accepted your truth," she said softly. "Now the tribe must see what you do with it." Sterling frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, her gaze steady, sad. "Tomorrow, the third trial begins. The trial of choice. You must decide what kind of man you are." Before he could ask, an elder stepped forward. It was Ayanna's grandfather, his face lined with years and wisdom. He held two feathers, one black, one white. "At dawn," he said in a low, resonant voice, "the raiders will come." Sterling's jaw tightened. "Raiders." The elder nodded. "A band from the north. They have hunted our kin for moons. They will find this camp before the sun is high." He paused, then extended the feathers toward Sterling. "You may leave before they arrive, and no one will call you coward. You have already given enough." Or, he let the pause hang heavy. "You can stay and fight with us. Not for blood, but for protection, for family." The meaning settled over Sterling like a storm cloud. His body was still weak from the trials. His hands were raw, his muscles trembling. He could barely stand, let alone fight. And yet, the thought of walking away twisted something deep inside him. Ayanna's voice broke the silence. "The tribe will not ask you again. Whatever you choose, it will define you." He stared into the fire, watching the last embers collapse into ash. The memories came back uninvited. The woman he once failed to save. The friends he'd lost in pointless skirmishes. The blood spilled for coin. He'd spent his life surviving. But survival, he realized, had never meant living. Sterling reached for the feathers. His hand hovered above them, shaking slightly. The black one represented safety, leaving, walking back to the world he knew. The white one meant staying, standing beside the tribe that had tested him, hurt him, yet somehow given him more peace than he'd ever known. He closed his fist around the white feather. Ayanna's breath caught softly. The elder nodded, his expression unreadable. "Then you have chosen the harder road," he said. "At sunrise, your final trial begins." Sterling looked at Ayanna. Her eyes shone faintly in the firelight. Pride, fear, something deeper he couldn't name. He tried to smile, but it came out weary. Dawn crept slowly over the horizon, washing the canyon in a pale, ghostly light. The camp was silent, except for the soft rustle of wind through the tents. Sterling stood with the warriors near the edge of the plateau, the white feather tied around his wrist, fluttering like a small heartbeat. He'd barely slept. The night had been long, filled with restless thoughts. The memory of the river's whisper, the faces of those who had trusted him. Now, as the first shafts of light touched the sand, he felt no fear. only clarity. Ayana moved among the warriors, checking bows, tightening leather straps, murmuring quiet prayers. When she reached him, she stopped. "You don't have to prove anything," she said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe not to them, but to myself, I do." Before she could answer, a horn echoed from the distance. A sharp, cruel sound. Then came the thunder of hoofs. The raiders appeared from the north, dark shapes slicing through the morning mist. Dozens of them, painted in red and black, their cries piercing the still air. The Apaches tensed, forming a semicircle along the ridge. Spears lifted. Arrows notched. Sterling's pulse steadied. He checked the old rifle they'd given him, a relic, rough but functional. He took a deep breath. The smell of dust and sweat filled his lungs. The first wave hit like a storm. Raiders on horseback charged, shouting, rifles flashing. The ground shook. Sterling fired once, the recoil slamming into his shoulder. One rider fell, another swerved. Chaos erupted, arrows whistled, blades clashed, horses screamed. The air filled with smoke and grit. Sterling moved instinctively, not thinking, just acting, reloading, firing, ducking behind rocks. At one point, he saw Ayana's grandfather fall, struck by a raider's spear. Without hesitation, Sterling ran forward, covering the elder with his body and dragging him to safety. A bullet tore through his sleeve, grazing his arm. The pain was sharp but distant. He barely felt it. Everything narrowed to sound, breath, gunfire, the drum of hooves. Then he saw Ayana. 2 raiders had cornered her near the water's edge. She fought fiercely, a knife in each hand, but she was outnumbered. He shouted, sprinting toward her. One raider raised his rifle. Sterling didn't think. He threw himself forward, slamming into the man just as the shot fired. The 2 tumbled into the shallows. The rifle skidded away. Sterling grappled with him, the man's hands clawing at his throat. He grabbed a rock and struck once, twice, until the struggle ended. When he rose, soaked and gasping, Ayana was staring at him, eyes wide, alive. Around them, the last echoes of battle faded. The raiders were retreating into the desert, leaving behind silence and smoke. Sterling looked down at his bloodied hands, then at the white feather on his wrist. It was soaked in red, but still clung there, untouched by fire or water. Ayana stepped closer. "You stayed," she whispered. The battle was over. The sun had climbed high, burning away the mist and blood, revealing what was left, silence. Smoke drifted lazily across the valley, curling around shattered spears and broken saddles. Sterling stood at the edge of the river, his rifle lowered, his hands shaking from exhaustion. The white feather on his wrist had dried to a pale pink, stained by both his blood and theirs. He untied it slowly, watching it flutter in the breeze before setting it on the water. The current carried it away, just as it had carried the horsebone days before. Ayana approached quietly. She was bruised, a cut across her temple, but her eyes were bright. "You stayed," she said again, her voice almost a whisper. Sterling nodded, staring at the river. "I didn't come here to fight, but I couldn't walk away." She smiled faintly. "No one ever can. Not when they finally see what's worth protecting." Behind them, the tribe was gathering. The surviving warriors stood in a half circle, their weapons lowered. The elder, supported by 2 men, walked toward Sterling with slow, deliberate steps. He carried something wrapped in red cloth. When he stopped in front of him, the old man spoke. "You came as a stranger. You gave your horse, your blood, and your heart. The river knows you now. The land knows you. He unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a necklace of bone and turquoise, centered with a small carved feather. He placed it gently around Sterling's neck. From this day, the elder continued, "You are not Sterling Maddox. You are Sieniki, brother of the plains." The words echoed softly through the canyon, caught by the wind. For a moment, Sterling couldn't speak. He looked around at the faces of those who had doubted him, tested him, and now stood beside him as equals. Ayanna touched his shoulder. "You are one of us now," she said. "Not by blood, but by choice." He met her gaze and saw not pity, not gratitude, but recognition, the kind that only exists between those who've shared danger, pain, and truth. He turned toward the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, harsh, beautiful, alive. Somewhere out there, his old life waited. But it felt small now, distant, almost unreal. For the first time, he felt the weight inside his chest lift. He wasn't lost anymore. He was part of something larger, a rhythm older than language. A bond forged in dust, blood, and sunlight. The tribe began to chant softly, a low-rising song that spoke of rebirth. Warriors raised their spears. Children ran through the smoke, laughing, alive. Sterling closed his eyes and let the sound wash over him. The wind carried the chant down the river, through the valley, into the open plains, a promise that his story wouldn't be forgotten. When he opened his eyes again, Ayanna was standing beside him, looking west. "What now?" he asked quietly. She smiled. "Now, we ride." The sun hung low over the Texas horizon, spilling molten gold across the sandstone cliffs. Wind whispered through the dry brush, carrying the ghostly echoes of distant coyotes. 3 figures on horseback rode into the narrowing mouth of the canyon, tired, dust-covered, and silent. Their badges glinted faintly in the dying light. Texas Rangers. Wade McKinley led the trio, his eyes sharp beneath the shadow of his hat. Behind him rode Boyd Jennings, the youngest of the 3, still clinging to the belief that law and justice were the same thing. Samuel Boone, older and scarred, trailed slightly behind, his silence heavier than his rifle. As the path tightened between the red walls, Wade raised a hand. "Hold," he muttered. His horse stamped nervously. From the ridges above, movement, silent, deliberate, impossible to mistake. Dozens of figures appeared, painted faces, feathers catching the last rays of light. 40 Apache scouts stood like shadows carved from the stone itself. No war cries, no gunfire, just stillness. The kind that presses against a man's chest and makes him question whether he's already dead. "Ambush," Boyd whispered. Boone's jaw tensed. "If it was, we'd already be ghosts." Then, from the ridge, a woman's voice called out, clear, steady, commanding. The Apaches parted as their leader stepped forward. Ayanna, daughter of the old chief, her eyes dark as the canyon itself. In her hand, a bundle of papers, letters, creased and yellowed with dust. "You ride under the star of the Rangers," she said. Her English sharp but deliberate. "Yet the fires of Willow Springs carry your mark." Wade's breath caught. The name hit like a bullet. Willow Springs, the settlement that burned 3 months ago. They'd blamed the Apaches. Everyone had. But looking into Ayanna's eyes, Wade felt something shift inside him. The kind of fear that doesn't come from rifles or arrows, but from truth clawing its way to the surface. Ayanna stepped closer, holding up a letter. This was written by a man named Thomas Brennan. He died with your badge on his chest. He spoke of children taken, sold, and buried beneath lies. You will answer for this. Boyd's voice cracked. That's not us. We We didn't. But Wade didn't speak. He couldn't. His silence said enough. The wind carried the sound of paper fluttering, the letter that could burn everything they'd ever sworn to protect. The canyon seemed to close around them, heavy with ghosts and guilt. And as the sun slipped below the horizon, Wade realized the real ambush wasn't the one waiting in the cliffs. It was the truth, waiting inside his own soul. The canyon had grown darker, the air thick with dust and unspoken words. The Apaches stood like statues, their silhouettes flickering in the dying glow of their torches. Every sound, the creak of leather, the restless stomp of a horse, echoed like thunder between the canyon walls. Ayanna approached slowly. Her steps were deliberate, her eyes unblinking. She carried a leather pouch and the folded letter that Wade had seen moments earlier. Behind her, a few Apache scouts brought forward a small bundle wrapped in burnt cloth, marked with the same star the Rangers wore on their chests. "Willow Springs," Ayanna said quietly, her voice sharp enough to cut stone. "Do you remember that name? McKinley?" Wade didn't answer. The weight of her gaze pressed against him harder than any rifle could. Boyd turned toward him, desperate for an explanation. "Wade, what's she talking about?" "We stopped the raid. Ayanna opened the bundle. Inside lay a small metal tag, a child's locket, scorched and blackened, but still bearing initials carved by a careful hand. "This," she said, lifting it toward the firelight, "was found beside the body of a child. Your badge was buried beneath her." Boyd's breath caught in his throat. Boone shifted uncomfortably, muttering something under his breath. But Ayanna wasn't finished. She unrolled another paper, brittle, stained with age. It was an official requisition form, stamped by the Texas Ranger Office. Names, ages, relocation of minors. These were not raids, Ayanna continued. These were hunts. Children stolen under orders, sold to settlements that vanished in fire when they spoke too much. The words struck like bullets. Wade's mind spun. He'd heard whispers, rumors of rangers gone rogue, missions that didn't make sense. But hearing it from her, with proof in her hands, made his blood run cold. Ayanna's voice softened, but the pain behind it cut deeper than anger. "My brother rode with your friend, Thomas Brennan. He tried to stop it. He wrote this letter before he died." She held it out. The parchment trembled slightly in the wind. Wade reached for it, slowly, like a man reaching toward the gallows. The handwriting was familiar, rough and slanted. "Wade, if this ever finds you, know that the truth will bury us all, but it must be told." He closed his eyes. The canyon around him seemed to fade into silence. "Why show us this?" Boone's voice rasped through the dust. "If you wanted revenge, you'd have killed us already." Ayanna looked at him, not with hatred, but with something heavier. "Revenge doesn't build the world we need. Truth does." And then she said something that would haunt Wade long after the guns fell silent. "Before this night ends, you will choose to die with your lies, or live with the truth." The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled over the desert. Wade looked at the letter again, the paper shaking in his hands. The flames burned low, casting long, trembling shadows across the canyon floor. The Apaches hadn't moved. They waited in silence, not as executioners, but as witnesses. The desert wind carried the smell of ash and cedar, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Wade McKinley stood at the center of it all, holding Brennan's letter in shaking hands. The parchment felt heavier than any weapon he'd ever carried. His heart pounded in his chest, echoing like a drum beneath his ribs. He looked at Ayanna. "You think I knew about this?" His voice cracked. You think I'd stand by and let... Ayanna cut him off gently. You wear the same badge, the same silence. The truth doesn't care who looked away. The words hit harder than bullets. Wade turned his gaze to Boyd, the young ranger. Still trembling, confusion written across his face. Boyd, he said, voice low. The raids we did, the orders that never made sense. You remember them? Boyd nodded slowly. Yet, they said the Apaches were stealing kids. But every time, the settlers were gone. No bodies, no graves. He paused, realization dawning. You're telling me we were taking them? Boone swore under his breath, kicking at the dirt. Hell, Wade, don't start believing their stories. You know how this land works. Lies keep peace better than truth ever did. Wade turned to him, eyes burning. That peace was bought with blood, Sam. With children. A hush fell over them again. Ayanna's people watched, but did not interfere. The canyon seemed to lean closer, listening. Ayanna took a step forward, placing the burnt locket back in Wade's palm. My people do not want your blood. We want your voice. You still ride with the badge. Use it to tell the world what it has done. Wade's throat tightened. He could almost feel Brennan's words whispering from the letter. It must be told. He looked to Boyd, then to Boone. We can't bury this, he said finally. We'll go to the Capitol. To the Congress. I'll sign the reports myself. Every name, every order, every crime. Boone's face hardened. You'll damn the Rangers. You'll damn us all. Wade nodded. Maybe that's what justice looks like. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Boyd stepped closer, his young face steady, eyes filled with something new, conviction. Then we start tonight, he said. We find the missing kids. The ones still alive. We bring them home. Ayanna studied him. This boy wearing the star of the same men who had burned her people. And for the first time, her expression softened. She gave a small nod. My scouts will guide you. But if you lie again, the desert will not forgive you. Wade tucked Brennan's letter into his coat. The paper crackled like a spark, waiting to ignite a wildfire. The Rangers turned toward their horses. The night stretched before them, black and endless. Behind them, the Apaches faded into the canyon shadows, their torches dying one by one. The night swallowed the canyon as the three Rangers rode east. Only the wind spoke, whispering through dry sage and skeletal trees. The stars above looked colder than they ever had, as if watching men try to fix something the heavens had already judged beyond repair. Wade led the way, his thoughts tangled between guilt and duty. Every hoofbeat seemed to echo the same word, why? Behind him, Boyd tried to match his pace, his face pale in the moonlight, eyes restless. Boone rode last, his silence sharp as a blade. The silence of a man who'd rather die a liar than live disgraced. Hours passed before the first signs appeared, wagon tracks, half buried by wind. Nearby ashes, a burned cart, scattered toys, melted metal. The smell of old fire lingered like a curse. Wade dismounted and knelt by the tracks, running his fingers through the coal dust. They moved north, he murmured. 2 days, maybe 3. Small footprints. Children. Boyd crouched beside him, staring at a fragment of cloth caught on a thorn. It was pink once, now gray with soot. He swallowed hard. God, Wade. What if we're too late? Wade didn't answer. He looked toward the horizon, an endless stretch of black hills and dying stars. Then we make them answer for every one of them. The riders pressed on until dawn. The sky broke open with a sickly light. revealing the desolation of what used to be Willow Springs. Charred timbers, stone chimneys standing like gravestones, and the faint outline of streets buried in sand. This was no raid, Boyd whispered. They erased the whole town. Boone spat into the dust. That's what happens when secrets start talking. Wade turned sharply. And what happens when good men do nothing, Sam? Boone's glare met his. But behind the defiance, something was breaking. A crack in the armor of a man who'd spent years pretending not to see. A soft whistle echoed from the ridge. Wade raised his rifle out of instinct, but it wasn't danger. From the shadows, an Apache scout appeared, Ayana's man. Wearing a wolf pelt over his shoulders, he raised his hand and pointed toward the north. "Tracks," he said in broken English. "Children, alive." For a moment, hope flickered, faint but real. Boyd's eyes brightened, and even Boone straightened in his saddle. Wade nodded. "Then that's where we ride." The morning sun began to rise behind them, spilling blood-red light across the ruins. The three rangers and the lone scout rode north, their silhouettes framed against the smoke-stained sky. They didn't know if salvation waited ahead, only that turning back meant dying with their sins. And so they followed the trail of ashes, where truth burned brightest in the dark. By noon, the land had changed. The canyon gave way to open plains, endless waves of dust and thornbrush, broken only by the wind. The sun scorched the world into silence. Tracks stretched ahead like veins across the earth, leading toward the northern hills. Ayana's scout rode ahead, scanning the horizon. His movements were calm, deliberate. Every so often, he would dismount, touch the ground, and listen. Then he'd look back and nod. Still north, still hope. Boyd rode beside Wade now, his hat pulled low against the glare. "You think we can really bring them back?" he asked quietly. Wade didn't look at him. "We can try. That's more than what we've done before. For a while, that was enough. But hope in the West is fragile. It doesn't last long beneath the sun." The first sign of danger came as a glint in the distance, metal catching light. Then another, and another. Wade's hand drifted toward his rifle. "Riders," he muttered. Boone squinted toward the far ridge. Not Apaches. Horses to clean. Formations too tight. He spat. "Rangers." The word tasted like poison. Moments later, the echo of hooves rolled across the plain. For riders, dust trailing behind them, badges glinting on their coats. They weren't here to talk. Wade motioned toward a cluster of rocks near a dry creek bed. "Take cover." The group ducked low, just as the first shot cracked through the air, slicing into the dirt near Boyd's boot. He hit the ground, heart hammering. Boone fired back once, deliberately missing a warning. But the riders didn't stop. "Damn it," Boone growled, reloading. "They're not after the kids. They're after us." Wade leaned against the rocks, eyes narrow. "They want Brennan's letter." Another bullet tore through the brush, close enough to singe Wade's sleeve. Dust exploded in his face. The scout beside him motioned toward a narrow ravine cutting through the hills. "There, escape path." Wade nodded. "Boyd, move." The young ranger sprinted for his horse as bullets shattered stone around him. Boone covered him, firing twice before climbing into the saddle himself. The chase began, horses pounding through the ravine, wind and grit stinging their eyes. Behind them, the loyal rangers pursued, shouting curses swallowed by the storm. Boyd glanced back. "They'll never stop, will they?" Wade's jaw clenched. "No, not until they bury the truth." The trail twisted between red cliffs, shadows flickering like ghosts. Finally, the scout raised his hand, signaling silence. The sound of pursuit faded into the wind. They had lost them, for now. Wade dismounted, chest heaving. He looked at Boyd and Boone, men torn between law and conscience. "They know what we're doing," he said. "Which means we're close." The scout pointed toward a ridge darkened by smoke. "Camp ahead," he said softly. "Children, maybe they're—" Wade's pulse quickened. He checked his rifle, eyes hard as iron. "Then we finish what we started." The ridge smelled of smoke and rot. Below, in a dry hollow surrounded by dead mesquite trees, flickered the faint orange glow of a campfire. Shapes moved in its light, men with rifles, a wagon, and something smaller near the center. Children. Wade lay flat on his stomach, peering through the scope of his rifle. The scene below was worse than he'd feared. A makeshift corral of wooden stakes ringed a group of frightened kids, dirty, barefoot, wrapped in torn blankets. Around them, 5 armed men drank and laughed. The sound carried upward by the desert wind. Boone exhaled slowly. Bastards aren't even hiding it. The Apache scout crouched beside Wade, whispering to guards on watch. 3 sleeping, 1 wagon heavy, locked, likely where they keep the trade goods. Wade didn't have to ask what those goods were. He'd seen enough to understand. Boyd shifted beside him, his young face pale with anger. "We can take them. Quick and quiet." Boone shook his head. "Quiet doesn't win this fight. Those kids scream, we'll have the whole damn border on us." Wade studied the layout, heart pounding. There was no right way to do this, only less wrong. "We wait until the moon drops," he said. "Then we move." Hours crawled by. The fire below burned lower, laughter fading into snores. Coyotes howled somewhere far off. The desert, for all its emptiness, felt alive watching. When the moment came, it came fast. Wade signaled with 2 fingers. The group moved like shadows down the slope, boots sinking into sand without sound. The scout drew a knife. Boyd clutched his revolver tight. Boone whispered a curse and followed. The first guard never saw it coming. A flash of steel, a muffled gasp, silence. Boyd slipped past him, heart racing, and reached the pen. The children's eyes widened, too afraid to make a sound. "She," Boyd whispered. "We're here to take you home." But before relief could settle, a voice roared from the darkness, hoarse, furious. "Rangers." Gunfire split the night. Sparks leaped from the rocks. Boone returned fire, shouting, "They're awake." Chaos erupted. Horses screamed, torches flared, and men stumbled from the shadows with rifles blazing. Wade dove for cover behind a wagon, bullets punching through the wood. "Get the kids out," he yelled. Boyd pulled 2 children through the fence just as another shot ripped through the pen. The scout dragged another toward safety, blood streaking his arm. Boone took one in the shoulder, but kept firing, teeth clenched. "We can't hold them." Wade's rifle thundered once, then twice. 1 slaver dropped. Another fled toward the horses. Smoke filled the air, thick and choking. In the chaos, Wade saw the wagon rocking, a figure inside, moving. A man's voice shouted, "Burn it all." Wade's stomach turned cold. This wasn't a rescue anymore. It was a race against fire. Flames leaped from the wagon, devouring dry canvas like paper. The desert night glowed orange, painting every face in terror. Gunfire echoed off the canyon walls, sharp and furious, a storm of bullets, screams, and smoke. Wade ran toward the wagon, coughing through the heat. The slavers were scattering, but the blaze spread fast. He saw movement inside, a small hand pressed against the wood, desperate and trembling. Boyd, Boone, there's someone in there. Boone, bleeding from his shoulder, fired a final shot and stumbled toward the fire. "I'll cover you," he shouted, gritting his teeth. Wade kicked the wagon door open. The blast of heat hit him like a hammer. Inside, 3 children huddled together, eyes wide, smoke swirling around them. He grabbed 2, dragging them out, but the third, a boy no older than 8, was trapped under a broken beam. "Hold on!" Wade yelled, pulling, muscles burning. The beam wouldn't budge. Flames licked his sleeves. Suddenly Boyd was beside him, face blackened with soot. "I got him." He wedged his rifle beneath the beam and shoved with all his strength. It creaked, shifted, just enough. Wade yanked the child free, clutching him close. They staggered out together, coughing, collapsing onto the sand. Behind them, the wagon exploded, a burst of fire and light that threw them both to the ground. The blast lit up the chaos, Boone still firing one-handed, the Apache scout pulling children toward the rocks, and the last of the slavers fleeing into the dark. Then, through the smoke, came a sound, the whistle of a bullet. Boone's body jerked. He fell to his knees, blood staining the dust. "Boone!" Boyd cried, scrambling toward him. Boone waved him off, his voice rough but steady. "Get the kids, out of here." He coughed, eyes flickering between them. "Don't let this mean nothing." Wade knelt beside him, hand gripping his shoulder. Boone tried to speak again, but only managed a broken smile. "You always were too damn noble, McKinley." And then he was gone, eyes staring into the fire that danced over the wreckage. The world went silent for a moment. Even the flames seemed to breathe slower. Wade stood, staring into the inferno, every ounce of rage and guilt burning inside him. "No more," he whispered. "Not one more." He turned to Boyd, voice firm. "Get them moving. We ride for the fort. We'll bring proof, and Brennan's letter. No more lies." Boyd nodded, wiping tears and soot from his face. "He died for this. We won't waste it." As the dawn crept over the horizon, Wade looked back one last time. The camp was nothing but smoke and ash now, but in that ruin, something new had begun. Justice, maybe, or redemption. The children rode between them, wrapped in blankets. The wind carried the smell of burned wood and the promise of reckoning. And as the sun rose over the blood-red hills, the Texas Rangers became something the West had almost forgotten. Men of truth. By the time the sun reached its peak, the fort rose ahead, a squat fortress of stone and timber, perched like a scar against the horizon. The air shimmered with heat. Flags hung limp above the walls. The emblem of the Texas Rangers faded and frayed. Wade slowed his horse, the rescued children riding close behind. Their faces were still streaked with soot and fear. Boyd rode beside him, silent eyes hollow. The Apache scout trailed last, his gaze wary, scanning every shadow. As they approached, 2 sentries raised their rifles. One stepped forward, squinting. "Identify yourselves." "Captain Wade McKinley, Ranger Division 4, Wade said, voice steady. "We bring survivors and evidence." The guards exchanged glances, uneasy. "Evidence of what, sir?" Wade's jaw tightened. "Crimes, by our own." That silence that followed was heavier than any bullet. The gates creaked open, slow and reluctant. Inside, the fort smelled of dust, sweat, and something rotten beneath the surface, the kind of decay that uniforms can't hide. Rangers watched from porches and doorways, their stares sharp, whispering among themselves. Boyd dismounted, helping a young girl down. "Feels like walking into a den," he murmured. "You're not wrong," Wade replied. They made their way toward the command hall. Inside, maps lined the walls, lit by shafts of sunlight cutting through the blinds. At the far end sat Colonel Avery Holt, his silver star gleaming, his eyes cold. "Captain McKinley," he said, not rising. "We heard reports. Something about Apache aggression. Yet here you are, riding with one." Wade stood tall. "That's because the aggression was ours, Colonel. The attacks, the kidnappings, Rangers did this, not the tribes." The colonel's expression didn't change. "You'd better choose your words carefully, son." Wade reached into his coat and placed Brennan's letter on the table, next to a packet of documents and signed confessions. "These aren't my words," he said. "They're the truth." A hush filled the hall. Holt stared at the papers, then at Wade. "You're accusing your own brothers?" "I'm accusing criminals wearing our badge." The colonel leaned back, fingers steepled. "And what makes you think the world cares, McKinley? You expose this, and the name of the Rangers dies with it." Wade's voice was low, but every word cut deep. "Then let it die. Better that than let it rot." Holt's eyes flickered, a shadow of something unreadable. "Leave the documents. I'll see they reach the governor." Wade hesitated. Boyd looked at him, shaking his head slightly. There was something wrong, too easy, too smooth. But Wade laid the papers down anyway. "See that you do?" As they turned to leave, Holt's voice followed them, calm and heavy. "You've made enemies, Captain. The kind that don't forget." Night fell heavy over the fort. The desert wind howled through cracks in the timber, rattling the shutters like restless ghosts. Inside the barracks, Wade sat awake, staring at the dark. Boyd slept fitfully nearby, his gun within reach. The Apache scout sat by the door, silent as a shadow. Then, a sound. Boots. Too many. Wade's instincts screamed before his mind caught up. "Up," he whispered sharply. "Now?" The door burst open before they could move. 6 Rangers flooded in, rifles raised. The light of their lanterns cut through the dark, glinting off cold metal. "Captain McKinley," said a voice behind them. Colonel Holt stepped in, immaculate as ever, his face carved from stone. "You're under arrest for treason, per Article 7 of Ranger Code." Boyd froze. "Treason?" Holt's gaze flicked toward the scout. "Collaboration with enemy tribes. Fabrication of false documents. Theft of state property." Wade rose slowly, eyes locked on the colonel. "You burned the evidence, didn't you?" Holt didn't answer. He didn't need to. The room was silent, except for the sound of wind and boots shifting on the floor. Wade took a step forward. "You'll hang us to protect your chain of command. To protect monsters." Holt's jaw tightened. "You think you can cleanse this organization with confessions and letters? You don't understand what holds Texas together, Captain. Order does. Reputation does." Wade's voice was low, raw. "Then it's built on bones." The colonel's eyes hardened. "Take him." The soldiers moved, but Boyd was faster. He drew his revolver, barrel trembling but steady. "Nobody's taking him." The tension in the air was like a drawn bowstring. "Boyd," Wade said quietly, "don't." But the young ranger's eyes were wild, a mix of fury and conviction. "You told me the Rangers stood for justice. I believed you. I still do. But this," he gestured around, voice shaking. "This isn't justice." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Holt sighed. "So be it." A gunshot cracked through the barracks. The world blurred into noise and smoke. Boyd fell to one knee, blood on his sleeve, but he fired back, dropping one soldier. The scout kicked another aside, blade flashing. Wade grabbed Boyd, dragging him toward the window. "Move." They burst into the night as alarms rang through the fort. Torches flared to life along the walls. Voices shouted orders. Boyd stumbled, clutching his arm. "We can't outrun them all." Wade stopped long enough to look him in the eyes. "Then we make it count." They ran for the stables. Behind them, Holt's voice roared across the yard, "Shoot to kill." Bullets ripped through the dark. The scout mounted first, pulling one child from hiding, the little boy from the wagon. Wade hauled Boyd into the saddle, then swung onto his own horse. The gates loomed ahead. Now, Wade shouted. The horses charged. Gunfire flashed. The gates exploded open under the impact, splinters flying into the dawn wind. 3 days later, the storm broke, not in the sky, but across the land. News traveled fast on the frontier. First came whispers from border towns, a burned camp in the desert, children rescued from traders. Then the letter, Brennan's confession, carried by a sympathetic telegraph clerk who'd copied it before. Holt's men could destroy it. Within a week, the story reached Austin. Within 2, the capital roared. Wade McKinley's name was on every tongue, cursed by some, praised by others. He didn't hear any of it. He was in the hills, tending to the wounded and burying the dead. Boyd lay among them, pale but breathing. The bullet had torn through his shoulder, but he'd live. The Apache scout, whose name Wade finally learned, had gone to return the children to their families. The wind carried their laughter down the canyon like something holy. For the first time in months, Wade allowed himself to sit, to breathe. At dusk, a rider appeared, a government courier. His uniform was clean, his eyes uncertain. He handed Wade a sealed letter bearing the governor's mark. Wade broke the wax. Inside, a single page. Your testimony has been received. Colonel Holt and 9 others are under arrest pending federal investigation. The Ranger Division is to be reorganized. You are hereby reinstated, effective immediately, to lead the Reform Committee. The words blurred in his vision. Reinstated, as if the blood could be scrubbed clean. With ink and titles, he folded the letter slowly. Tell the governor, he said, that reform won't start in Austin. It starts here, where the truth was buried. The courier hesitated, then nodded and rode away. Night fell quiet and cool. Boyd stirred, voice weak. You think they'll really change it? Wade looked toward the horizon where the fort had burned, where the children now slept safe. Maybe not in our lifetime, he said. But someone will remember, we tried. Boyd smiled faintly. Boone would have liked that. Boone earned it. Silence settled again, soft and final. The fire crackled, shadows dancing like memories across the rocks. At dawn, Wade saddled his horse. The world smelled of rain and ash, the scent of endings and beginnings. He looked once more toward the south, where the Rangers had fallen into disgrace, and then toward the east, where the sun climbed slow and gold. Ride safe, Boyd called after him. Wade tipped his hat. Always do. He turned his horse toward the open plain. Behind him, the legend of the Texas Rangers lay shattered. Ahead, something new waited, not glory, not forgiveness, but truth. And as the wind rose over the desert, carrying the echoes of what had been lost, Wade McKinley rode on into history, into redemption, into the long light of the morning.
The sun beat down on the dusty main street of Redemption Pass. Fletcher Knox, a man whose only consistent companion was the dust on his boots, was looking for a decent horse, and $12 was all he had left. A small, shifty-eyed man named Jedediah was offering a sturdy bay mare. "Best $12 you'll ever spend," Mr. Jedediah promised. Fletcher quickly made the deal. "Sold," Fletcher confirmed, handing over the crumpled bills and tying the mare's reins. The transaction was immediately interrupted. Two tall, graceful women, cloaked and utterly out of place, emerged from Jedediah's wagon. "Wait, you haven't taken the full payment, Fletcher Knox," one of the women stated, her voice steady and resonant. She introduced herself as Ayana, and the woman beside her as her sister, Kiona. They were the daughters of Chief Takakota, whose ancestral lands bordered the vast territories of the tyrannical landowner, Gideon Pratt. Fletcher was baffled. "Payment? I bought a horse, ma'am. That's all." Ayana stepped closer, urgency replacing her formality. "The horse was a necessary conduit. We were sent to you by treaty. My father's agreement was simple: the mare for transport, and his two daughters for protection, not as property, but as a debt paid in loyalty and a shared purpose." She explained in a whisper that they carried proof documents detailing Pratt's illegal seizure of their sacred lands and his attempt to destroy their tribe's connection to the powerful earth energy they called the core. Kiona added, her eyes nervously scanning the street. "Pratt's men are looking for us. They know we have the evidence. Your purchase, your $12, made you our shield. We are bound to you now until Pratt is defeated." Fletcher felt the familiar knot of dread. He was a drifter, not a hero. He should ride away. But something in Ayana's fierce resolve and Kiona's desperation resonated with a forgotten sense of honor deep within him. Before he could protest, the shadow fell over them. 3 riders, Pratt's enforcers, led by the scarred man Razor, rode slowly into Redemption Pass, their eyes locked onto Ayana and Kiona. "There they are," Razor spat. "The chief's foolish girls. The boss wants his property back. Move aside, drifter. This is not your fight." Fletcher's hand instinctively went to his revolver. He took a deep breath, the dust filling his lungs. The simple bargain was over. The fate of the Takakota tribe had just landed in his lap with the purchase of a $12 horse. "It seems," Fletcher said, pulling his gun and stepping forward to shield the women. "It just became my fight. The blood that had begun." The air in Redemption Pass cracked with the sound of Razor's warning shot, aimed deliberately near the mare. "Last chance, drifter. Hand them over," Razor snarled, his voice thick with malicious intent. Fletcher didn't flinch, but the loud crack galvanized him into action. He knew he couldn't win a sustained fight in the open street against 3 armed men without putting the women in impossible peril. His only advantage was the element of surprise and the chaotic environment of the market square. He fired his first shot, aiming deliberately low, not at a man, but at a stack of empty crates near the general store's porch, sending splinters and dust flying directly into the face of the nearest enforcer, momentarily blinding him. The loud, sharp noise caused several townsfolk to scatter and hide, adding to the necessary confusion. "Down to the stable," Fletcher yelled, grabbing the reins of the bay mare and pushing Ayana and Kiona toward the narrow alleyway that led to the town's small livery. The sisters, surprisingly agile and trained, didn't hesitate. They ran, keeping low, their movements fluid and coordinated. Ayana, displaying fierce presence of mind even under fire, reached down and scooped up a handful of dirt and loose gravel, throwing it expertly and forcefully into the eyes of Razor's second man, briefly disabling him. Kiona, while running, pulled out the small, intricately carved bone whistle she carried and blew a high, sharp notice signal, perhaps, or a further sonic distraction meant to confuse the horses. Razor screamed, his voice laced with pure rage. "Don't let them reach cover. Get the women. Forget the drifter." Fletcher used the moment of distraction to fire 2 quick, well-aimed shots at the legs of Razor's horse, forcing the beast to stumble and preventing Razor from riding immediately after them. This bought them precious seconds. Fletcher knew he had to disable the pursuit, not necessarily kill the men outright. Not yet. Killing them would bring the full and bridled wrath of Pratt down on the town and the entire region immediately. They reached the shadowed safety of the livery stable. The air was thick with the smell of hay and horse sweat. Inside, the stable hand a young, terrified boar was hiding. Fletcher secured the bay mare inside a stall. "They'll follow the tracks," Iana stated, pulling Fletcher by the arm toward the back entrance of the stable, where a narrow gap led to the rocky, less traveled trail heading toward the foothills. "We must lose them on the high ground." "High ground? That leads right to the edge of Pratt's declared territory," Fletcher countered, his eyes scanning for any immediate threat. "It leads to the border of our true ancestral land, where the law of Pratt weakens," Fiona explained, breathless but steady. She pointed to the small satchel she carried. "This is what they truly want. It holds the power of the Corps' legal claim. If they destroy this, my father's people are doomed." 2,500 characters. "We have to create maximum confusion," Fletcher muttered, reloading his revolver. Fiona nodded, pointing to two spirited, unshod ponies tethered in the back. "They are ours. Fast, silent, and trained for the mountain paths. You must take the mare," she instructed Fletcher. "She can carry the weight of your gear better in the open country. We will move like shadows." Iana took control. "When they enter the stable, Fiona and I will ride out the back. You create a powerful, loud distraction here. They will assume we are all riding the obvious escape route out the front." Fletcher saw the logic. He quickly gathered the essential supplies from his saddlebag: ammo, water, dried jerky. He placed several empty hay bales strategically near the entrance, soaked them thoroughly with oil from a rusty nearby lantern, and lit a small, controlled fire near the stable's dry walls. The thick, acrid black smoke immediately began to billow, creating an oppressive haze inside the stable. "Go, now," Fletcher urged. Iana and Fiona mounted their ponies with startling, practiced grace. Moving like shadows, they rode out the back gap and vanished into the rocky terrain, their ponies barely making a sound, perfectly suited for silent travel. Seconds later, Razor burst into the stable with his remaining enforcers, coughing and swearing as the smoke filled their lungs. "They're gone." "The fire. Search the stalls." Razor's voice was muffled by the thick smoke. Fletcher, hidden behind a tall stack of feed bags, waited until the men were fully disoriented. He fired 3 quick, loud shots into the ceiling, hitting the weak, dry rafters. A shower of dust, splintered wood, and dry straw rained down, momentarily burying the enforcers and creating a terrifying din. They went out the front. "Get the horses and follow," Razor mistakenly shouted, interpreting the loud noise as their main exit. Fletcher used the confusion to sprint to the back, jumping onto the mare. He rode hard and fast, but instead of following the women's faint path, he rode north, away from the foothills, creating a clear, obvious trail for Razor to track. He was the essential decoy. He rode for an hour into the scorching desert plateau, the sun climbing higher and turning the sand an angry orange. He risked a glance back. 3 distinct dust clouds were closing fast. Razor and the remaining enforcer had managed to retrieve their horses and had taken the bait, assuming the drifter, being the buyer, was their primary target and that the women were within. As the chase intensified, Fletcher felt a strange, cold sense of purpose. He was a man running for something. The chance to see this strange, difficult bargain through. He guided the mare towards the treacherous pass known as the Serpent's Gulch, a narrow, rocky canyon that was nearly impossible to traverse on horseback at high speed. He had to delay them for an entire day to give the women enough time to reach the sanctuary. The Serpent's Gulch, a twisting, shadowed canyon, proved to be the perfect battlefield for the injured Fletcher. He rode deep in, his bay mare operating on instinct, navigating the treacherous path between sun-baked boulders. He was running on adrenaline, and the deep-seated awareness that his survival now dictated the success of the women's mission. He had to buy them more than just a few hours. He had to buy them a day. About 50 yards into the gulch, where the canyon walls narrowed dramatically, Fletcher spotted a precarious natural feature, a steep slope holding a huge pile of loose stones, restrained only by a few small, key-retaining rocks. It was a natural, catastrophic trap waiting for the slightest disturbance. He spurred his mare, pulling her to an abrupt stop just around a sharp turn, and quickly dismounted. He didn't have time to think. Using the worn stock of his rifle, he carefully but forcefully nudged the largest of the retaining stones at the base of the pile. The low rumble started immediately, quickly escalating into a deafening, terrifying thunder as the tons of rock slid down. Razor and his remaining enforcer appeared around the bend seconds later. Their horses, already stressed by the chase and blinded by the sudden shift from sunlight to shadow, couldn't possibly react in time. The immense pile of stones collapsed, effectively blocking the narrow passage with an insurmountable pile of rubble. A desperate cry of pain and a terrified whinny echoed through the canyon walls. "Hold up, or die, Drifter," Razor roared, his voice thick with frustration and mounting hysteria. One of his horses was trapped, and the last remaining enforcer lay beneath a large boulder, clearly disabled. Fletcher did not fire. His goal was not murder, but complete and total delay. He quickly cut the straps of his saddlebag and tossed it onto the ground near the rubble, making it look as though he had been thrown or incapacitated. He remounted his mare, risking one quick glance backward. Razor, now dismounted and swearing incoherently, was frantically trying to free his remaining man. "He was trapped. He's on foot. We'll track him. He can't outrun us in this heat," Razor screamed, abandoning his effort to save his man, his voice confirming he had taken the bait and believed Fletcher was injured and on foot. Fletcher pushed the mare further, then finding a dense, overgrown ravine, he abruptly turned east, off the clear track, toward the foothills. He had sacrificed safety for the illusion of a clear pursuit. He was wounded. Razor's bullet had grazed his shoulder, but he had achieved his objective. He had bought them precious time. Meanwhile, high on the hidden trails of the foothills, Ayana and Kiona moved with the silent efficiency of those born to the land. Their ponies were quick and sure-footed, designed for the rough terrain. The sisters traveled in complete silence, their minds focused entirely on the mission. "He shouldn't have done that," Kiona finally whispered, sadness in her voice. "He is just a man." "But he risked everything." Ayana stopped, pulling the reins gently. "He is a man of courage, sister. His honor is what keeps this bargain sacred. This satchel holds more than paper. It is the voice of our ancestors, the documented history that proves Pratt's claim is fraudulent. If it reaches the core, the law will bind even Pratt." Kiona frowned. "But Razor is a fierce tracker. If he realizes the Drifter is just a shoe, it will take him a full day to climb out of that mess, retrieve his remaining man, and find the correct easterly path," Ayana confidently asserted. "That day is what we needed." They continued their ascent toward the abandoned, high-altitude wind path, a treacherous route used only by their ancestors to avoid standard patrols. After nearly 2 hours of hard riding, as the sun began its slow, heavy descent toward the western horizon, Ayana suddenly held up a hand and pulled her pony to a stop. "Stop!" She dismounted quickly, her eyes scanning the dusty ground. She pointed to a narrow gap between two large boulders. She lifted a broken branch of dried cactus. It should have lain flat, blown by the wind. Instead, it was inverted, a carefully placed symbol, invisible to outsiders, but unmistakable in the Takakota language. "They have passed here," Ayana whispered, her voice tightening with dread. "Not Razor's men. These are Pratt's elite patrols. They know the hidden trails. They were waiting for us." Fletcher delayed Razor's thugs, but the main forces are already sweeping the high ground. Kiona gasped, the blood draining from her face. Then we have no day. Only a few hours. Ayana nodded gravely. She pointed high above them. Against the deepening violet of the mountain range stood a massive, fortress-like rock, illuminated by the last rays of the sun. See the guardian rock. That is the gate. The core is close. We must abandon caution now. We must ride as fast as the wind itself. The sisters remounted and plunged into a desperate gallop toward the formidable rock, knowing they were racing against both time and a prepared enemy. Razor and his remaining enforcer, consumed by a fierce blend of rage and humiliation, were relentless. They abandoned their disabled horses in the canyon and were now following Fletcher's trail on foot, their heavy boots kicking up dust on the eastern ridge. Razor, an experienced tracker despite his brutality, quickly ascertained that the discarded saddlebag was a deliberate decoy. The drifter is not heading back to Redemption Pass, Razor growled, kicking the leather aside. He's heading for the foothills. He's bought those girls time. He'll pay for it with his hide. The pursuit devolved into a grueling, silent hunt. Fletcher, injured, exhausted, and desperately lacking water, utilized his knowledge of the desolate terrain to his advantage, aiming for areas with rocky ground to minimize his tracks, forcing his pursuers to expend maximum effort. But the wound in his shoulder throbbed with every pounding beat of his heart, and Razor's fresh legs and unwavering focus meant he was steadily gaining ground. Fletcher reached a dilapidated, half-buried mining shack, the last remnant of a failed gold rush. He knew he could not maintain this pace. The end of the chase was near. He entered the shack, taking up a defensive position behind a crumbling stone hearth, pulling out his last remaining rifle rounds. He was a man cornered, but the fear of Gideon Pratt gaining the ultimate victory, the destruction of the evidence and the enslavement of the Takakota people was a fire that burned stronger than his own fear of death. The $12 bargain was now his final, bloody stand. Razor approached the shack with seasoned caution. He sent his last man wide, flanking the small structure. "We know you're in there, Knox. Give up. You prolonged your own suffering for nothing." Razor's voice was sharp, echoing the desperation of a man who needed to succeed to avoid Pratt's retribution. Fletcher waited until the flanker stepped into the sightline of the single, crumbling window. One quick, quiet shot. The man went down instantly, his rifle clattering against the sand. Razor screamed, a guttural sound of pure hatred, and rushed the shack entrance, pistol raised. Fletcher fired, hitting the door frame, sending splinters flying. Razor retreated, but Fletcher knew he was only delaying the inevitable. He heard Razor scrambling onto the thin, dry roof. Fletcher scrambled out the back window, rolling onto the hard ground just as Razor crashed through the roof. The dust cleared, and the two men locked eyes for the final, deadly time. Simultaneously, Ayana and Kiona reached the base of the massive, guardian rock. They dismounted and rushed toward the deep crevice, the entrance to their sanctuary. They were too late. Gideon Pratt's elite patrol silent, disciplined men in dark uniforms, vastly different from Razor's thugs, emerged from the shadows, blocking the narrow entrance. Their leader, the warden, cold and precise, stepped forward. The chief's daughters. A predictable final move, the warden stated. Hand over the documents. Pratt doesn't want harm, only his property. Ayana stepped forward, placing herself between the warden and Kiona, who clutched the sacred satchel. This is not property. This is sacred ground. You have no right here. Warden, sacred ground holds no value to Pratt. Only power does, the warden replied, raising his rifle. A desperate, violent fight began. Ayana and Kiona, trained in tribal defense, fought with ferocious speed and agility. They used sharpened bone daggers hidden beneath their clothes and the terrain to their advantage. Ayana managed to fell one patrolman by sending him tumbling into a deep, hidden crevice. Kiona blew a rapid series of notes on her small whistle, momentarily disorienting the remaining men. During a brief moment of cover, Tiona found the hidden mechanism, a smooth, dark stone camouflaged in the rock face that opened a path to the core. A heavy section of rock began to grind open slowly. "Go, Tiona. You must deliver it," Ayana shouted, drawing the immediate, lethal attention of the warden. Tiona hesitated, her heart breaking at the thought of leaving her sister. "I can't leave you. I am the shield now. The $12 debt must be paid," Ayana screamed, throwing herself into a brutal hand-to-hand struggle with the warden, distracting him long enough for the rock passage to open fully. Tiona, tears streaming down her face, but resolute, grasped the satchel firmly and plunged into the dark, narrow passage. Just as the warden slammed Ayana against the hard rock wall, the heavy door began to slide shut, sealing Ayana's fate and the evidence's passage into the hidden sanctuary. Fletcher Knox and Razor faced each other in the dusty clearing by the ruined shack. 10 feet separated them. Razor was fast, his shot exploding first, kicking up dust at Fletcher's feet. But Fletcher, having anticipated the rush, was calm. He aimed for Razor's weapon hand, the most direct path to ending the threat without a lethal escalation. Fletcher's single shot hit its mark. Razor screamed as his pistol clattered to the ground, his trigger finger shattered. The intense pain brought the ruthless enforcer to his knees, his pure hatred momentarily replaced by shock. Fletcher, trembling with exhaustion and pain, slowly lowered his revolver. He walked over to the downed man and kicked the pistol into the sand. "It's over, Razor," Fletcher said, his voice raw. "You lost. The bargain is paid. Now tell me, where are Pratt's main patrols?" Razor, clutching his mangled hand, looked up at Fletcher with burning venom. "Go to hell, Drifter. Pratt will burn this whole region to find those papers. You just guaranteed a war." Fletcher knew he wouldn't get information. He bound Razor tightly, left him a small canteen, and took the extra ammunition he needed. He started walking toward the Guardian Rock, the only direction left. He was no longer a drifter. He was a fugitive and a defender of justice. As the sun began to set, casting long purple shadows, Fletcher spotted a lone figure watching him from a high ridge. A local settler named Martha. She approached cautiously, carrying a rifle. "You're the man who bought the horse," she stated, her voice quiet but firm. "We settlers heard about the market fight, and we heard about the women. We hate Pratt as much as the Takakota people do. He starves our land and steals our water." Martha lowered her rifle slightly. "We saw you head to the gulch. We've been watching Pratt's patrols near the rock. You bought them time. You need help, Fletcher Knox. The people here are ready to fight back. You're the symbol they needed, the man who risked everything for justice." Tiona plunged into the darkness of the passage, the sound of the heavy rock door sliding shut, sealing her sister's sacrifice outside. The profound wave of grief was overcome by the mission's absolute priority. The passage was a twisting, carved labyrinth, descending steeply into the earth, illuminated only by the faint, eerie glow of phosphorescent moss. This was the true, hidden world, the core. She moved quickly, relying on memory and instinct. The air grew still, heavy and strangely warm. After a terrifying descent, the tunnel opened into a vast, breathtaking cavern. It was illuminated by a single, immense natural crystal formation at its center, which emitted a soft, pulsing green light, the very heart of the earth energy. Scattered around this light were the surviving elders of the Takakota tribe, their faces etched with despair. Tiona rushed forward, sinking to her knees before the chief elder. "Old Mother, Elder, I have returned," Tiona whispered, presenting the satchel with trembling hands. "The voice of our ancestors is here." "But Ayana," she held the gate. Old Mother carefully took the satchel. Her eyes gained a fierce clarity. "Ayana's sacrifice honors the death child, but the delivery is not complete until the evidence reaches the Council of Settlement. It must be delivered above ground." She held up the satchel, revealing that it contained 3 small, ancient, smooth river stones. These are the stones of testimony. They carry the core's energy. They will authenticate the papers and give them power against Pratt's lies. Kiona, you must escape through the upper passage, the one known only to the chief and the elders. Take the stones. Take the voice. Old Mother pointed to a steep, vertical shaft hidden high in the cavern ceiling. The upper path leads far from the rock, into the canyons. It is dangerous, but swift. Go. The sun must not set twice on the evidence of Pratt's greed. Kiona, the sole carrier of her people's hope, fixed her gaze on the shaft of escape. Martha led Fletcher to a secluded valley where local homesteaders and several Takakota tribesmen had gathered. The atmosphere was grim but unified. Pratt's patrols captured Ayana at the rock, Martha explained, bandaging Fletcher's shoulder. They are holding her at Pratt's central ranch house as leverage. Fletcher met Chief Takakota. Your courage is a sign, Fletcher Knox. The chief acknowledged. We attack Pratt's ranch tonight. The settlers will block roads and cut wires. My warriors will create a diversion. You, Fletcher, you must find and free Ayana. Under the heavy darkness of the moonless night, the plan was launched. Settlers moved like experienced guerrillas, cutting telegraph lines and blocking roads. Fletcher, guided by Martha, approached the sprawling, fortified ranch compound. Ayana is held in the old barn, Martha whispered. The warden and a few guards are with her. Pratt is in the main house. Fletcher moved in, low and fast, finding a weak point in the barn wall. The barn was dimly lit. Ayana was there, bound to a heavy post, battered but defiant. The warden stood over her. Where is the satchel? Pratt will crush your people. Ayana refused to speak. Fletcher moved from the shadows, his borrowed knife silent and lethal. He took down the two flanking guards instantly. The warden whirled around, drawing his pistol, but Fletcher tackled him low. A brutal, close-quarters fight ensued. Fletcher fought with desperate purpose, overpowering the warden and knocking him unconscious. He quickly cut Ayana's ropes. Kiona delivered the evidence. We have to go. The chief is waiting. Ayana's eyes, wide with disbelief and relief, finally met his. You came back. You paid the debt. Fletcher and Ayana burst out of the barn just as the main diversion erupted. Takakota warriors firing and setting fire to Pratt's outer supply sheds. Chaos reigned. Gideon Pratt himself emerged from his house, roaring orders and rage, surrounded by his personal guard. Stop them. Find the girls. Kill the drifter. The scene turned into a desperate, chaotic battle. Pratt's professional guards against the unified settlers and tribesmen fighting for their future. It was during this chaos that Kiona finally emerged. Having navigated the upper passage of the core, she rode a borrowed settler's horse into the fray, heading directly toward the nearby Council of Settlement building with the satchel and the stones of testimony. Pratt saw her. His worst fear materialized. The papers? No. Pratt charged on horseback, abandoning his men to stop Kiona. Fletcher, seeing the target shift, yelled to Ayana, go. Kiona needs help, but Ayana pointed to the chief. I must be with my people now, Fletcher. That is your fight. Fletcher mounted his mare and rode hard to intercept Pratt. Pratt, a man of power and not battle, fired wildly and missed. Fletcher forced the confrontation onto a narrow, rocky creek bed. Pratt's heavy horse stumbled, and Pratt was thrown violently onto the sharp rocks. Gideon Pratt was defeated, not by a bullet, but by the very terrain he had sought to conquer and exploit. The battle ended swiftly after Pratt's death. His guards surrendered to the unified forces. The next morning, Kiona, flanked by the chief and Martha, presented the evidence, authenticated by the stones of testimony, to the council. Pratt's illegal reign was officially over. Fletcher stood watching. Ayana approached him. You saved us all, Fletcher Knox, she said softly. The $12 bought more than a horse. It bought us a future. You have a home with us if you will have it. Fletcher looked at the valley, now a place of hope and shared responsibility. It seems that $12 was the best deal I ever made. He smiled.